welcome to another version of Connect the Six. Happy New Year, and here's our first segment for the year. Today, we have a very important community member joining us today. No other than the one and only Louis March from Zero Gun Violence. Louis, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me to be on this very important podcast.
Thank you. So, Louis, we're into the new year. Now, we are very much aware of all the gun violence that's taken place over the years. We're aware of the tremendous work you've been doing yourself, trying to make changes, but also being at the table and bringing a lot of organization together so we can work as one. What's your take for the New Year's, and what are your plans?
Well, Zero Gun Violence movement started 2013 after we had a major shooting at the Eaton Center in the food court. We had a major shooting at a community barbecue in Danzig. And as a community worker myself, as a youth worker, I called some community groups together and asked the question, why has the violence gotten, we're pointing the guns on each other at public events? And the gun violence trends have started to increase. In 2005, we had 52 homicides due to gun violence. That was one per week. We took a trip to Ottawa to see the Prime Minister at that time to say, look, we need to get ahead of this. We need to get ahead of this. And the plan that we had, the focus that we had was investing in communities to stop the violence. Get to the youth, give them some positive alternatives early. Give them proper education, proper employment opportunities so that they don't use violence as an option. And we were beginning to make progress then because we saw the gun violence numbers, youth engagement increasing, increasing, gun violence numbers decreasing.
Right.
But then about 10 years ago, we started seeing a spike in the numbers again. And it was severe. It was killing our communities. And not only that, killing our kids. So Zero Gun Violence movement started then as a 90-day, listen to me, a 90-day summer initiative. 7 community organizations coming together and saying, we're going to go across the city of Toronto, go into these various communities, work with the community leaders, work with the youth, and we're going to come up with a plan to address the gun violence problem. Richard, little did we know. Little did we know. After 90 days, we didn't even know what the problem was. We didn't even know what, much less a solution.
Right.
So after 90 days, we said, look, we can't drop this. We have to continue doing this. This is serious work. So 10 years later, we're still at it. We have a better understanding of what the problem is. We have a better understanding of the solution and what we need to do. So that's where Zero Gun Violence movement came out of. So 10 years later, we're still at this, but progress is being made. When we talk about the trends, over the last 5 years in the city of Toronto, gun violence numbers, shootings, homicides have declined. This is unlike North America. The major cities in North America, gun violence has continued to rise. In Toronto, it has declined, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, for 5 years. It has been in a declining mode. So certain things have changed, but we can't stop doing what we've been doing. And we've got to continue getting better at it. Right? So Zero Gun Violence movement is at the forefront in terms of bringing awareness to the problem and ensuring that this remains a priority for the politicians at the federal level, at the provincial level, and at the city level.
Yes, that is so true. Louis, over the years, we've worked together when it came to even Keep6 Gangster Tuition Program, which again caters to the gun issue that we have had. That's how myself and other community stakeholders sat down at the table and was able to build this program. I've seen the individuals in our community, the numbers that has come through Keep6, When it comes to individuals, we've had about 140 for last year that went through a program, and we've had a zero incident rate. We've had no one that has failed or gone back. We had one individual that was violated. That individual was reinstated for that violation. So with that said, we are doing good work. The problem I have is our government. We're in the trenches. You know, we're all in the trenches doing the work, but Louis, we're not getting the support. No one is seeing us. We've gotten numbers to prove that we are doing the work and the impact we're making, but we don't have the financial support.
So this is one area that we need to focus on. So Zero Gun Violence movement is about education and awareness. What is really going on? Between me and you, the police can't tell you the truth because everything's under investigation. The politicians can't tell you the truth because everything they say is politically motivated.
Right.
So where are you going to get the truth from? How you can understand the problem if you can't talk about it honestly, right? So the work that Keep6 is doing and the other community organization is about bringing an awareness and education about gun violence, right? If this is not a priority to you, right, you can't solve it, right? So the work that you're doing in terms of making change, and you have the numbers to prove it, but you're not getting the funding, means there's a disconnect. The second piece about Zero Gun Violence movement is advocacy. We've made several trips to Ottawa to speak to politicians about focusing money in these areas. The first word in community safety is what? It's community. It's not policing and it's not politicians.
Right.
This is where the money goes, right? The next piece is about our engagement. So the first one is education and awareness. The next one is advocacy. Trying to get them to make changes to the way they do funding, the way they do policy, the way they do programming, right? It's not easy, but we're not giving this up. And the final piece is about engagement. Who do we engage? We work with over 40 different organizations, agencies, programs across the city, right? We work with the victims of gun violence, but we also work with the people responsible for it. People that have done the crime, done the time, and want to make a difference. Half of the people that we work with have criminal records, right? But I'd rather listen to them about the problem than listening to the politicians and the police if we really want to solve it. If we just want to play a game.
Or a check mark.
Yeah, or a check mark. Yeah. Then go ahead and do it. But we're not going to participate in that with you, right? Yeah. Every homicide that we've seen, there was an intervention point, Richard. Whereas if somebody had done the right thing, said the right thing, right, tried to intervene and prevent, they could have been prevented. So we always show up after the gun has been fired. We can't put the bullet back in the gun.
No.
Right?
No, we can't take back that life.
We can't bring it back because we work with the mothers who have lost, right? We know the suffering. We know the hurt, the pain, the agony, and the grief that results from it. We are a resourceful city. We are a resourceful country. If we put the resources where we can have maximum impact, we can address this problem. But we have not gotten to that point yet at the political level.
You know, to say that, I think really, even at the political level and everyone else, you're dealing with individuals who are not in tune to really what's going on in their community. I think a lot of times over the years, these individuals are looking at numbers. And the financial aspect of it, to do the work, they're focusing it on the big organizations that's been around for centuries and decades, where we're just individuals who knows the root cause and trying to reach members in our community to make that change. We have a lot of young people that we are already aware of that they need resources, right? When it comes to employment. You know, fortunate for us, we're able to get some of them into the trades in different sectors, that kind of a support. That's what they're looking for. Unfortunately, our government officials are looking for Band-Aid solutions.
I think that's the key piece, Band-Aid solutions. Look, we have something we call it the Funding Olympics. So the Funding Olympics talks about when the funders, whether they're government or non-government, come out with funding available to address this problem, we know who's going to get the gold, the silver, and the bronze. Those are those people that they've known for decades, for centuries, and so on. Those people are going to get the big chunk of the funding. And then the leftover funds, guess what? Keep6, right? All the other community organizations have to compete amongst themselves to get that.
Yeah.
That can't work. That funding model has to change.
Right.
Find out who is producing results, not checkbox results, real results, right? And find out what they're doing and fund them, right? Like these organizations that have been funded for decades, right? You know, are they producing results?
Yeah, no, but we are aware of that now, Louis. But on top of it is a better part. Those same organizations are reaching out to you and I and the other organizations because they need the bodies we have to be able to meet the criteria
to check marks.
to check their box.
So
they don't have the bodies, although they have the money. They don't.
Bodies.
You know, people.
Okay,
you know.
yeah.
So let's be real about the whole situation.
So look. Over the last 5 years, gun violence trends have come down in the city of Toronto.
Yes.
Unlike the other major cities in Toronto. No, not in Toronto, in North America.
North America.
Where their numbers have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, what are we doing in Toronto that is having this impact? Right? That other cities are not doing.
Right.
And what I've seen making a difference is the community organizations working better together. Despite government interference, right? There's a more collaborative approach. I've seen even the city of Toronto, and I got to give them their props. They've come up with a safe TO plan, which brings all the key stakeholders to the table to have discussions about what can we do as a collective, as a collaborative, to solve the problem. We never had that before. But this is a 10-year plan. So it's going to be an investment in community over 10 years.
Right.
We've seen collaboration between the border security in the States and in Canada,
Yes.
where they're sharing information. They're working less as silos and more as a collaborative.
Right.
And as a result, we see a lot of guns now being stopped at the border, not coming across. 90% of the guns found at crime scenes are, guess what? Illegal guns smuggled across the border. Let's focus on stopping those guns from... Look, I'm not advocating for a wall to be built between Canada and America.
We're not,
right?
no.
No, I'm not advocating for that. But we can do a better job. And that better job means coordination, collaboration, sharing information, sharing data, using technology, right? This is not rocket science. If you want to address this problem, this is what you need to do. But we also need to connect with the community initiatives that have an impact.
Right.
And we're going to listen to them, right? And we need to get better at that. We need to get better at that.
I think right now, at the stance, there's a lot of, like Toronto, you said, I know the same thing is happening in Peel region, where they have organizations come together as a collective, giving out funds to work together for what they call a Safer Peel program. That is where individuals that have maybe gone through the justice system, even myself, I've had the opportunity to be at the table and give my own personal point of view.
Right.
I recall, it would have been 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember, I was invited to the House of Commons, where they were talking about the gun violence.
The Senate. Yeah.
And I was somewhat taken back because I recall the question was asking me, and the question was, Richard, we have $1 billion. And the $1 billion was supposed to be, I think, if not mistaken, was towards gun buyback program. So the question was, what would you do with that $1 billion within Keep6? And the first thing I came to mind, I replied back was education, mental health, employment into the trades, skilled trades, and so forth. Because these are the things that we need to look at when we want to make a safer and better community. There's actually a root cause that generates all this. Poverty is clearly one.
So one thing that we've said is, stop talking about banning guns if you're not going to be talking about banning poverty. You ban poverty, you don't have to worry about it. People have to get their head around what I'm actually saying. You're always talking about banning gun buyback program. When you do the buyback program, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get the old guns, the antique guns, the ones that were found in the basement that are no good, and people are going to bring them in to get money.
Of course.
The people that are using the guns for illegal activity think they're going to turn their gun in on.
Not at all.
Right?
That was exactly my thought. And even Mrs. Johnson, who has a gun in the house that Mr. Johnson passed away, and he was an avid shooter or a gun collector, she's going to turn them in because he's passed away. She doesn't want them in the house anymore. Those are the guns you're going to get.
So we don't have people coming up with policy and programs that really that is relative to solving the problem, right? I'm glad that you went, right, and spoke the truth to what's going on. But the fact of the matter is that money is out there, Richard. How do we channel that money into those areas that we can have maximum impact?
The way to channel that money is, and my ask would be at any government officials, right, when it comes to that money, is to have them come in the trenches and see the work we're doing and be able to understand, because you cannot tell me at any time that anybody can be sitting at Parliament Hill, at Queen's Park, or anywhere and have a clear idea. Because everybody's just going off what they are reading or what they vision in their mind.
Or what they've been told.
Or what they've been told by a report from a professor.
Academics.
Right? And that's what it comes back to, academics. So with that said, my answer all the time is to A, put on your boots, come down in the gutter, and see the work we're doing.
And it goes back to what I said previously. The first word in community safety is community. Bring the community to the table or come into the community, as you're saying. Listen to what they know more about what's going on in their community than the police and the politicians combined, right? So why not listen to them? But that means we have to change the way we design policy, design program, and design funding. And these politicians, they have a very short memory speed. Like everything is within a certain period of time. I'm saying to myself, no, come and invest some time and effort in these communities so you can get a better. We started out as a 90-day summer campaign. And we admitted that after 90 days, we had no idea about the magnitude and the complexity of the problem.
Right.
And we said, no, we're going to continue. So 10 years later, we're still at it. But we have a better understanding. I want the politicians to take that approach. But the thing is, the politicians work in certain windows, right? When is the next election, right? And what must I do to get votes? Not about what I need to solve this problem, right? Because solving this problem is a lot of long-term investments that have to be put in place.
Of course. There's no question about it. But the thing about it is that the long-term investment that has to be put in place, we have to get these individuals at the table to have a clear understanding about moving forward.
And that's why this podcast is important, because I want people to look at it. I want people to listen, because your experience on both sides of the fence and my experience for how many decades I've been doing this, there's a value to it, right? So don't make decisions about dealing with the gun violence problem. Look, when we started Zero Gun Violence Movement, the whole concept of zero gun violence was foreign to everybody. They thought I was cuckoo. They said, Louis, aren't you listening to what's going on in the news? Aren't you seeing what's going on? What are you talking about zero gun violence? And that's the worst thing you can say to me, because I will use the F word, right? And say, excuse me, we already have zero gun violence in our city.
Sure, in some communities.
For certain people. So if they can have zero gun violence in Rosedale, why the F can't we have it in Rexdale? What's going on in Rosedale that's not going on in Rexdale? And what's going on in Rexdale? Let's find the difference out. And as political leaders, what can we do to close the gap? And there's no magic switch that we can, but it takes a long time investment and understanding that we already have the template, we already have the model, we already know what needs to be done. but do we have the political leadership, political will, and political courage to do it?
And the support.
Because at the end of the day, you might have to change the way you've been doing things for the last few years or the last few decades. Like we have a premier that believes the first thing that he did when he came to office, his name is Doug Ford.
Yes.
The first thing he did when he came into office was he cut $25 million funding for after-school programs for vulnerable youth. Where did he put that money? He gave it to the police. And the police says, holy smokes, we didn't expect this, but thank you very much. But we need community partnerships to solve this problem. So he cut $25 million out of after-school programming for vulnerable youth, gave it to the police that said, yeah, we'll take it, but we still need a community to work with us. He said he believes in putting more boots on the ground. He's from the old school. I'm going to put more boots on the ground to invest in policing instead of dealing with the root causes. Those kids that were not in the after-school programs, guess where they ended up?
They're inside.
That's our premier. So that's his mindset.
But remember something also, even speaking about the premier, and I'm going to go back to him very shortly. But these individuals, how I call them, they're from the old boys club, right? So there's a set of individuals that when it comes to politicians, when it comes to the system itself, they've been around for a long time and it's passed on, generational. Someone in the family, and they got their foot in the door and they have that mentality, right? So they work on a system where it's a system not best for our community, it's best for their pocket.
So, and this is why we have to address this issue of who's making the decisions, for who, for whose benefit. Zero gun violence movement does not accept the status quo. We want to close the gap because we have the template out there. But closing the gap means that we have to do things differently. But when you have a premier that starts off with, I'm from the old school, I'm going to say, Mr. Ford, why don't you graduate from the old school and come into the modern day schools, right? Thinking. And I don't think he's ready for that. And that's why today I heard you made an announcement.
Yes, let me play that.
Message to all the criminals, we're coming after you, we're going to catch you, and you're going to jail. Simple as that, we're going to keep you in jail as long as we possibly can. I will not spare one resource to make sure we go after these thugs and make sure that they're going to jail. But it takes a multiple approach from all levels, and I think I mentioned everyone in there, including, and I have a great bunch of respect for our courts, but we can't have JPs letting these criminals out on bail once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. They're kicking in people's doors with guns. I've seen videos. It's unacceptable. We're going after them, and we're going to do everything we can to hold them accountable.
So that's Mr. Ford, our premier. And today he announced $121 million for police in Ontario targeting gun violence. Now, let's remember something. Every one of those criminal or whatever he calls individuals, thugs, I'm sorry to tell Mr. Ford, they're coming right back out in the community sooner or later. Even the individual that might have picked up a charge of murder of a first degree. After 25 years, they're coming back into the community. So when Mr. Ford invests all this money to policing, my question I have to ask Mr. Ford, what is his plan for when they come back out? What is the reintegration plan? Right? Because there's none.
And not only that, it's not after. Look, we know, the research tells us that for every $1 you invest upfront in prevention and intervention, you save up to $6 to $10 on the back end in terms of policing, incarceration, justice, healthcare, right? Every $1 you invest upfront, you save between $6 and $10 on the back end. But his intention is to put all the money in the back end.
Right.
Like, did you mention any of that money going towards community? No, it's all going towards police. And the police cannot do their job if community is not working with them, right? And the way he's talking about thugs and locking them up, I think he's used the expression "throw away the key" in the past too.
Right.
That is an old-fashioned approach to
We
dealing
go
with
back.
this problem.
We go back to the old boys club mentality.
And we have to change that. But what I saw today that I've never seen before, I've got to be careful how I say this. We've always spoken about the fact that the three levels of government, federal, provincial, and city, I've never seen them at the table together talking about gun violence, gang violence, and the solutions.
Right.
They've always been working in silos. I've seen the feds and the city, but he's always been an outlier. So for the first time, I saw him actually sitting down with the feds, right? So I'm saying to myself, this is a possibility. Maybe he's changing his mindset. But then what he started saying, it goes back to what, so those people that are coming back into the community, it's going to become a revolving door. He wanted to mention bail and everything, JPs and stuff. Look, we have a justice system. We have judges. We call them judges because they weigh the good and the bad, the positive and the negatives and the law.
Right.
That's why we call them judges, right? We don't tell them what to do, right? We say, you're a judge. Use your understanding and knowledge in terms of setting bail. And he's been deliberate in not mentioning how many people stick to those bail conditions. Over 95%, 96% of the people stick to their bail conditions. There's a handful of people, yes, that they come out on bail and they will commit again and stuff. Let's deal with that. But don't throw the whole system out when 96% of it is working. Right? So don't come down on the JPs and the justices, right? Unless you can do a better job. But if your better job is to just lock them up and throw away the key and call them thugs, then I question the integrity of what you're saying and who is to benefit from it.
And I have to say one thing. When just listening to him speak, it's a problem just how he addresses these things with the names. That is something that's very prominent in our justice system. And it's always about breaking down our young people mental state. Like my argument I always say to the individual, I say, take the time and spend a couple hours in a courtroom. It could be a bail courtroom or a remand or a trial courtroom. And it's a consistent thing of always manipulating but breaking an individual's self-esteem. The judge, when he sentenced you, Jason, I'm going to sentence you to 18 months. You're a menace to society. That individual, he gets in the paddy wagon and he goes on to the correctional institution and the court officers. Get in! No, you have no rights. You get into the jail, you ask something for the guard, you have the guards telling you, shut up, you have no rights. If you wanted your rights, you shouldn't have came in here. It's that whole mental state. So an individual's mind is reprogrammed.
So there's no rehabilitation taking place. Look, we call it a justice system. We call it a punishment system, right? So if you're going to continue to punish a certain population that is struggling, that needs help, what do you think is going to happen? When they come back out, what are they going to go to? So we all, look, the way I look at this gun violence issue and the gang violence issue, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. We all have different pieces. But if those pieces are not connected, we don't have it in solving this problem. So we need to listen to people that might not look like my piece, right? And hear what they have to say, right? And I attribute the decline in numbers in Toronto over the last 5 years to the fact that we're getting better at the collaboration and the concept of investing in community. But the thing about it is we can't have a premier going out there talking about thugs and locking them up and whatever, and focusing only on policing. He's got to, as I said, he's got to graduate from his old school and come into the new age school, the new age approach, and find out what's working and invest in that.
Speaking about that, I think it would be great to have Mr. Ford himself come on the Keep6 Connect the 6 one day. Let's put this out there, Louis. Mr. Ford, we would love for you one day to join us on Keep6 Connect the 6 Because we would like to have a face-to-face conversation with you about your decisions and even your speech today. We would like to hear some clarity and ask you a few questions and allow our community to have a voice and say how they feel and for you to address that.
And I just want to make this point, is when you cut the 25 million from after-school programming and gave it to the police, who said we cannot police ourselves or arrest ourselves out of this problem by ourselves. When I talk to people that are involved in criminal activity, and I ask them the simple question, where could we have made a difference for you? That would have had an impact on you taking that road versus this road. You know what the majority of them tell me? If there was programming after school, right, where they could have done something positive, learned skills, be around mentors and stuff, that might have shifted them away from going to the streets to sell drugs. They say that if I can't make good money today, I'm going to make bad money tomorrow.
Right.
Right? So we have to start listening to these people. What can we do to engage them up front? Provide positive alternatives up front. Because as I said, for every $1 we spend up front, we save $67 on the back end in terms of police and justice. And we know that system doesn't work because we know that it targets certain people. Right? The quality of representation, whether it's at the lawyer level, whether it's in the correction system, right? We know that there's certain people that feel the punishment more than others.
We're very much aware.
So we have to put all these things on the table, right? But we need leadership with courage. We need leadership that has the will and leadership that is willing to listen. Because the solutions are not difficult, right?
No,
but you got to listen to the right people.
Right. It's a very simple formula. It's about sitting down and having the opportunity to master the plan, to execute it. Someone like myself who I know inside, behind the walls of the system, but also outside what goes on. There's a great deal of work, and I must take my hat off and say that even when it comes to correction themselves, they are taking even a different approach, right?
When you say a different approach, for the good or for the worse?
Well, and for the good, because they're starting to look at the issues and hear the voice of the individuals, what they're saying. And it's very clear from what I have seen personally is that what they've been doing haven't been working well. So they're at the point right now where they're open to different ideas, but also to listen.
So let's take advantage, because some of the doors that have been traditionally closed are now opening. So we've got to be there, right? And be willing to participate. For me, it's simple. Either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. There's no in between. So zero gun violence movement has been part of the solution, right? But you can't be part of the solution if you don't want to engage those people that have much more than your bureaucrats can contribute to finding the solution. Again, I go back. It's simple. The first word in community safety is community. The first word in public safety is public. It's not policing. If you bring policing in, it's after the fact.
Yeah, you're already too late.
It's already too late. So when I say that Doug Ford needs to graduate from the old school and come into the modern school age, right? I think that if he does that, then maybe he'll accept your invitation.
Well, we're hopefully that we'll get Doug Ford to come and sit between us one day, and we can have this discussion and continue it.
As long as he has an open mind and he's ready to really deal with this problem. Toronto's an incredible city. Toronto is a world-class city. If they do a survey on cities in the world that people want to go live, Toronto is always in the top 10. So whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's business opportunity, Toronto is there. So when we put our mind to something, we normally solve it. Right. We need to put our mind to this gun violence, this gang violence problem, because if we do it properly, we can solve this, right? We can do this. Like, we work with over 40 different organizations, agencies, programs across the city, right? And they all want to make a difference, but it's bringing them together. Like we had a march mothers, a community march against gun violence last September. We brought 10 community organizations together, right, to walk down Young Street with a biker group in front leading the way, revving their bikes, right, coming from Young and Bloor, coming along Young Street, going around University back up to Queen's Park to say, look, the victims of gun violence are suffering. They need resources and they need supports that don't have an expiry date, because everybody responds to their loss in different ways. And I'm saying this is critical, because if we don't deal with that trauma, guess what? That trauma manifests itself in violence later on, whether it's retaliation, whether it's just mental health. You mentioned mental health, right? We got to stop this madness.
Well, even the trauma part of it, Mr. Ford is speaking about, we're going to lock them up. And hey, there's a lot of trauma that they're dealing with after you lock them up. What I'd like to hear, how are you going to deal with all the trauma? Where's the money to deal with that trauma, that mental health?
No, it's not on his program. Right?
But
he's appealing to a certain audience when he says that. But for the people on the street that knows where the money should be invested to prevent these things from happening, to give these young people an opportunity, right? Early, right? That's where the savings are, right? If the focus is on locking them up, throwing away the key, we're coming after you thugs and so on, that mindset, it has no place at this table. Sorry, Mr. Ford. It has no place at this table. This is 2024. We've made progress. We know the template. Let's put our focus on doing those things that are making a difference. Investing, funding, coming up with new programs and new policies that create that space where young people feel engaged and have positive choices.
Well, I mean, this year, we're in 2024, and I'm looking forward for us to collaborate even with you for one of our initiatives this year when it comes to gun violence for this year in June. Because June 2nd is...
No, the first, let's get... We have worked with some corporations that normally would not have worked with us.
Right.
The Toronto Raptors have stepped up, right? Masai Jerry, the whole Raptors organization has advocated. They've gone and they've met with Trudeau, the federal government, and now guess what? We have a national gun violence, not a city, a Canadian National Day for Gun Violence Awareness, and that day is the first Friday of June every year moving forward. And what I'd like to see is corporate Toronto. I'd like to see the community initiatives. I'd love to see the government, Toronto District School Board, policing, housing, do something for gun violence awareness. This year it's going to be June the 7th, the first Friday, right? And yeah, we'd work with Keep6ixorg, we work with anybody, right, to ensure that day, because I think the more people know about the real problem, the more they will want to be involved in solutioning this.
Definitely.
So it's June the 7th. Let's come up with something.
June 7th. I think June the 7th this year, I would love for Keep6ix to, and Zero Gun Violence and other organizations. We got to bring the corporations in there to have a concert about gun violence.
I think,
right? And bring all...
I go back to, if the public understands the multifaceted and complexity of this problem. My mentor, Dudley Laws, said to me many moons ago, nobody's born with a gun in their hand. Nobody's born saying that they want to be a gang leader, a drug dealer. There's certain things that happen along the way that cause them to do that. He said, if you want to solve the problem, let's look at that trajectory and put in place. But we can't do it individually. It has to be a collaborative. It has to be coordinated so that those jigsaw puzzle pieces come together. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And corporate Toronto is part of it, or corporate Canada is part of it.
Well, Louis, this year for 2024, I am going out on the heel and toes, knocking on the corporate Canada doors, and we're looking for their support. Because this year, we're going to make something big, we're going to make some changes, and don't forget, we have to have Doug Ford there too. Mr. Ford, we're looking forward to seeing you and connecting with you.
And we will attend his graduation ceremony when he graduates from his old school.
Sounds good, and you know what? I'll even make it even better. I'll supply the flowers.
You got a plan.
Anyhow, thank you everyone for joining us at Connect the Six. It was a pleasure. Keep staying tuned, and we look for you. Forward to seeing you at our next segment. Keep 6, Connect the 6. Louis, thank you for coming by. This is an amazing segment, and it's a great way for us to start off the new year.
No, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank Keep6 for the work that it's doing with the vulnerable population that needs help. I'd like to also thank you personally for the work that you have done. We met first time at a march that we were doing by Queen's Park, and I know that you were struggling because there was so much disconnects, and I saw it as my job to try and encourage and support the work that you do. And it's good to see how you've grown Keep6 to the point now where people know what it's about. And I'd also like to thank you for inviting me to participate in this discussion. People need to know what's going on, and if people know what's going on, they will do something. So thanks again for this opportunity. All the best, and let's continue working together.
Thank you so much. Again, folks, please support Keep6. We're here for our community. Stay tuned for our next upcoming segment of Keep6, Connect the 6, in the 6.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.